In the comedy world, there is something called the turn. That is where you take the audience through your storytelling in a direction they fully expect to go. Then at the absolute last possible moment, you take them in a completely different yet totally unexpected direction, which is often where the comedy lives and why they call it the turn. Now, in the car world, the turn didn't really exist until Germans started building station wagons. You see, they too would take their audiences in very familiar, expected directions like practicality, unassuming design, efficiency. Then over the past couple of years, we've started to experience those very unexpected directional changes. Things like not so practical, very menacing designs, and crazy powerful engines to the point where we are today, which is now the third turn in the saga of the German station wagon on these shores. As we kick things off, I feel compelled to share something a bit off topic. You see, Kumo and I, we have waited an incredibly long time to drive this vehicle. So to say that we are excited would be the understatement of the century, and you are looking at one of the reasons why. That is a gas direct injected, twin turbocharged 4-liter V8. That is good for 591 horsepower that comes in at 6,250 RPM and 590 pound-feet of torque that comes in at 2,050 RPM. Then there's the fact that this is an Audi, coupled with the fact that the engine sits so far forward, that would tell you it's all-wheel drive. That goes for anything you want, as long as it's an 8-speed Tiptronic. Now, that is a term that Audi uses in generally their high horsepower vehicles, and Porsche used to use back in the day, but what does that mean to you and I? Well, it means it's not a dual clutch. It means there is a torque converter there. And if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, they pair this transmission with this engine because of that 590 pound-feet of torque. And then, do we really need to talk about the fuel economy? 15, 22, 17 is a basis comparison. That's a little bit worse than an E63S wagon. Then there's the performance figures. This station wagon, Estate, Avant, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. And then there is the VMAX. It's electronically limited to 155 miles an hour. However, there is a trick, which we will discuss later, to change that to 190 miles an hour. Have you ever heard the concept, life, it's all about balance? And as much as we love obnoxious power output, there's that pesky detail of mass that always gets in the way. 4,960 pounds, depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,249 kilograms. With that, no, that the mass doesn't really get in the way in this case. Wow, this thing is insanely fast, to the point where power delivery here is both unusual and rather special. Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of what we experienced in that SQ8, but this, it's to another level where it's not just that it's more power, it has a completely different personality in this car. And here's an incredibly good example. Most OEMs will say, oh my God, peak torque comes in way down here, but when you and I get on roads like this, it comes in way up here. This, exactly as advertised, you can tell there is a rush of power that comes in at 2,000 RPM, and it just pulls like a freight train all the way up to almost 5,000 RPM. God, this thing is so fun to drive. But anyway, we do need to focus on significant underpinnings here. Up front, multi-link. In the rear, multi-link. At each corner, multi-chamber air ride. That works in conjunction with something we were first introduced to on that SQ8, which is an active roll stabilization system that works in conjunction with a 48-volt electrical system. So here, it can control the mass from side to side as it's driven more aggressively. Here it's fitted as standard. In the SQ8 and some other Audis, it's fitted as optional. Then moving on to the brakes, continues the theme of comical numbers with this vehicle. The front brakes, 16.5-inch diameter rotors as a basis of comparison. A large pizza anywhere in the city of New York is 18 inches, and in the rear, 14.6-inch diameter rotors. What you are looking at is not the standard steel rotor. These are the optional carbon ceramic rotors. But there kind of opens up Aladdin's cave when one opts for the carbon ceramic rotors. You see, when you ask for more braking power, the folks in Ingolstadt say, well, if you want more braking power, then we should bless you with more go power. So remember we discussed the VMAX at the top of the episode? It's the carbon ceramic rotor option that unlocks the 190 miles an hour VMAX. And then the comical numbers move into the unusual territory when we discuss the wheels. You see the smallest option on offer, 21 inches all the way around. What you are looking at are 22s. They are optional. No, they are not part of the carbon ceramic rotor package. It's a completely different package. And there are 3 different designs on offer. They all are this 5 V-spoke design, which I have to say looks incredible on this car. It's the finish that changes. So what you see here is the gloss black finish, then there's a matte black finish, and then there's a silver finish. If it were me, I'm kind of feeling the matte black. Oh my God, this is a big, heavy car, but wow, there is some control over all planes of motion. And yes, that is the 48-volt electrical system at play, because really what's happening is it's counteracting all the weight that wants to lean over to that side as I push over to this side and then switch over to this side. It's incredible that such a long vehicle, remember this is a 115.7-inch wheelbase, and I can aggressively go around turns like this. There really is very little squat and dive here, which you would expect in a vehicle that is so nose heavy. Remember how far up that engine is, because it is an Audi Quattro. That aside, the most surprising aspect here is the ride quality. You would expect an incredibly punishing ride quality, kind of like we had in that Elantra N that we drove on these same roads. However, here it does maintain a really good balance between composure and compliance. Now granted, it's much more on the side of composure, but it's not intrusive to the point where you couldn't drive this thing around town every day, and that's saying an incredible amount, especially when you consider the size of the wheels. So at the end of the day, your wife, mother, grandmother, girlfriend will not complain about some sort of harsh ride that kills their intestines in the crazy station wagon you bought. You guys know I'm a huge fan of the concept of never let them see you coming, and one of the designs that exemplifies that mantra so well is the E63S wagon. Now yes, it is sort of menacing looking, but truth be told, if you were to put that car in the same parking lot as a serial production E450, most civilians could not tell the difference. This completely different kettle of fish, and no, not because of dimensions, like wheelbase, almost identical to an E-Class and a 5 Series sedan here in the US, but it's really design that sets this apart. Specifically, the very sharp creases, all of the angles, and then the most successful part of the design are the fenders that bow out, and no, they're not tacked onto the car. They are completely different body panels from the serial production A6. Now in my mind, that leaves us with 2 questions. Number 1, which one is the most attractive out of the 3 obvious bonkers German station wagons? And to me, it would be the Sport Turismo, because it has a little bit more presence, mainly because it is a longer vehicle. Then the much more important question, which one will stand the test of time better? Meaning, if we look 30, 40 years in the future, which one will look better in the classic car world? Not worth more, just look better. And to me, it's either this one or the Sport Turismo. I would say the Sport Turismo because it's got a more sensual looking body. This one, I'd say, almost edges out the Porsche because it's a more period design. We would look back and say, oh yeah, that is very much a car from 2020, kind of like we look at a 67 Eldorado today. I would argue brake performance and the somewhat related pedal modulation is more important in vehicles that are either A, EV propulsion, B, some sort of a hybrid, or C, obnoxiously powerful German station wagons. The reason here is obvious: all that extra mass combined with all that extra power, you need the extra stopping power. But how does it feel? And here, the pedal modulation, one of the best I have experienced in the optional carbon ceramic world. And then there's the actual brute force of the stopping power, which is unusually good, even with the sound at the end. Therefore, I would go so far as to saying this is one of the few instances where I would opt for the carbon ceramic rotors, because you really need them with this powerful and heavy of a vehicle. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Options game, with today's contestant, arguably one of the most important Audi road cars produced today, the 2021 Audi RS6 Avant, translated to English, that would be station wagon, for $109,000. To that we add the color. Now that is called Nardo Gray. I know many of you confuse this as Battleship Gray, which it ain't because it's not a matte finish, although that would look pretty cool. Then there's the interior, which is black. I am not a fan of black interiors, although black does look good with the Nardo Gray. May I make a suggestion? How about a two-tone interior? Like black seats, maybe black floor, black dash top, but like gray inserts in the seats and then gray inserts in the door panels. And not only would that look better, but it would work very well in conjunction with the red stitching that is fitted as standard to this vehicle. Now, the problem I have with the red stitching here is not that it's bad, it looks great. However, it's too thin. It's not pronounced enough. You don't notice it, and it's all over the seats of this car. Perhaps you could check in with your cousins and crew and they could sort you out in this area. Anyway, let's press on to some real options. The carbon ceramic rotors and red brake calipers for $9,000. Then the carbon optic package, which is the carbon fiber exterior trim, the rocker panels, the diffuser, the air dam, and then the carbon fiber mirror fairings, and then those 22-inch 5 V-spoke wheels in gloss black for $6,350. Then the executive package. Kind of odd that this is optional in a $109,000 car, but that is the extended leather, the heated rear seats, most importantly, the head-up display, and then the power closed doors, $2,500. Then we press on to something that is confusing because A, it's not as exciting as the other options, and B, if it ain't exciting, why are you charging me extra for it? That would be the driver's assistance package, which is made up of the adaptive cruise control and the traffic sign recognition, $2,250. I don't know if it's just me, but you really shouldn't be charging extra for it on a $110,000 vehicle. Anyway, let's press on to arguably the most important option on this vehicle, because this thing is designed, engineered, and built to be an obnoxious vehicle on 4 wheels. So you need something that sounds obnoxious, so one would need the Sport exhaust, $1,000. And then the last option. This is something I have not seen on an Audi before, and it kind of takes me away from the concept of a satin finish wood dash, which I normally like. This is the carbon twill structured inlay. Put another way, this is naked carbon fiber. From a tactile feel point of view, this is more akin to a textile as if the carbon fiber were left in its raw form. While great and all, there needs to be a change here, and that absolutely would be the color, because this is such a great color and trim element, mainly because of the texture. Why hide it? So let's go back to my two-tone interior suggestion. Could make it like the gray two-tone I was talking about, or better yet, how about making it out of a really bold color choice? Because think about the time someone gets in a vehicle like this for the first time ever. Do you want that to be something that's got this color and texture, or do you want it to be a sea of black plastic? Your choice. Either way, $500. To that, the only thing we add is destination handling, von Deutschland, for $1,045. for a total suggested retail price of $131,645. Now, before we press on from this round of the game, there is a special edition on offer called the RS Tribute. It comes in a stunning color called Nogaro Blue, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. That kind of tells you what the Tribute car is, which would be the 1994 RS2 Avant. Then they add a couple things like the Sport exhaust, silver wheels, and the executive package, which brings us to differentiating the interior. There they changed the red stitching to blue stitching. It's denim blue specifically that picks up the Nogaro Blue exterior. This can be had for $137,845. But it's not like you're gonna roll in and just write a check and get the car, because there's a catch. It's exclusive. They're limiting the number of cars they're bringing to the US. And as a basis of comparison, a 1961 Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato, they made a total of 19 of those. This one, they're bringing to the US a total of 25. If there is any complaint I could muster about this otherwise magnificent vehicle, it would be the steering. And yes, I do harp on over-boosted steering systems a lot, but this, it's more of a crime because this is meant to be an obnoxiously powerful weapon. And here the steering is just too light, it's too overboosted, it doesn't match the personality of all the other wonderful tricks and driving dynamics that's been done here. It doesn't match, in particular, with all of the capability of that 48-volt electrical system. So let's change the steering a little bit, definitely add some weight. It works, it just needs more feel. It needs to be heavier, and it also needs a bit more precision to match what this vehicle is trying to accomplish. So you will not be surprised to learn that this absolutely my kind of thing, but more germane to our discussion, this is good, and it is good for two reasons. First and foremost, the fact that it exists in today's day and age of nothing but SUVs, that's a milestone. And the number two, arguably more important, this is the embodiment of the turn in the automotive world, and that's what makes it desirable. Then we need to press on to, I would argue, the more pressing question: which one of the three horsemen is the one to choose? Would it be this, the Panamera Sport Turismo, or the E63S? Now, first and foremost, I really can't say that it is a fair comparison to put this against the Sport Turismo, because you and I on Tuesday are going to drive the top of the Sport Turismo mountain, and that would be a 21 Turbo SE hybrid that has 100 horsepower more than this. But let's say we were to drive the Turbo S, which has 30 more horsepower than this. It's still almost twice the price of this vehicle. That's why it's not a fair comparison. So looking at the Mercedes, I would argue the Mercedes, dynamically, that one's a bit sharper. And I would believe that has something to do with the engine placement here, because that changes the driving dynamics of this vehicle. Not bad, just different. And then there is the very obvious question: would I put this on my list of cars that I would write a check for? And the very honest answer: I need some more time. It's definitely a candidate, but I need some more time with it to come back to you with a final answer. Then the only other business we have is the wish list. And there, I feel kind of greedy even offering a wish list, because we're lucky we even get a couple of hundred of these things a year in this country, so really shouldn't be asking for more. But you already kind of know what it is. Definitely heavier steering, some more color on the inside. But that's about it, because this thing is as close to automotive nerd perfection as you can get. And with that, I do want to leave you with two things. Number one, anything I have not included on the wish list that should be there, let me know in the comments below or via our social media. And number two, Kumo did some research on the pricing before we did this episode, and he found that between this, the RS7 and the RSQ8, this one is the cheapest of the three. I don't know what Audi's polling, because this is the one most of us would want. So the fact that it's cheaper makes it even all the better. Until I see you next time, bis später.